Hey guys, we are back with another episode of the MM Sports Pod. Glad if you've been staying with us this long. It is week 3 for us. Big games in college football this week. We are here on Monday night, so before the rankings drop, and I'm here with my man Max Marceau. Max, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Got some ball to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with the game of the week, man. Tennessee, Georgia. What are your biggest takeaways there?
Georgia, backs against the wall. They find a way to get it done, man. They honestly took it to Tennessee, weathered the storm there. They want to see Tennessee got up to what, a 10-0 lead,
Yeah, 10-0.
and then it was 30-7 after that. So I mean, they just backs against the wall. They figured it out when it mattered most at home. That definitely helped. But Carson Beck had probably his best game of the season, especially given how everyone was fading Carson Beck. I'm sure that feels good for him to maybe push back just a little bit. And they look dominant, man, honestly, besides one quarter. So 3 out of the 4 quarters, they were by far the better football team.
Yeah, like you said, Tennessee starts out up 10-0, and then Georgia puts up 17 in the second, makes it a 17-17 game at halftime, and then Georgia scores 7 points in the third and the fourth quarter. Late touchdown in the fourth quarter to put it away and make our Tennessee plus 10.5 incorrect. But
That was tough. That was a tough backdoor cover right there.
yeah, it was. But Georgia takes care of business in the second half. They look like the Georgia of old. As soon as you start doubting them, they come back and just prove you wrong. The biggest thing that I noticed during that game is that Tennessee, their O-line was not necessarily winning on pass downs, but Georgia's O-line, big time winning on pass downs. Carson Beck had all day to throw, and he's able to just sit back there, hop, 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 and find a guy. And, you know, it's no coincidence that that's going to give him his best game of the year. He went over 300 yards and a couple tutties. So, I mean, Georgia looked really good. Anything else you've seen from there?
No, I think that covers it. It's as simple as Georgia was the better team. They have worked themselves into almost an automatic bid into the playoffs, which we'll talk about here when we get to our rankings. But kind of a had to have it for both teams. Tennessee's on the outside looking in, Georgia's on the inside and feeling comfortable with that game. So overall, just Tennessee, they got beat, and it's just kind of what it's been for them for the past few seasons. They're right at the edge of making it to the playoffs, trying to make a run, and they just kind of lose when it matters most. So definitely disappointing for Tennessee. You still got to be happy with what the season has been. You still have a chance to make the playoffs, but yeah, Georgia just getting back to what we're used to.
Yeah, Tennessee, they give up more than 20 for the first time this season, and they give up 31. You know, if they gave up 20, their 17 wasn't enough from the offense. You just can't get blanked in the second half and expect to go win a football game of
Mm-mm.
that magnitude. The offense just didn't show up in the second half, especially after coming out up 10-0.
Well, I mean,
So
the defense got a pick early too, so like that offense was set up for their first score, and we're just they didn't do much of anything. We're talking like 10 points that
yeah,
were
and in that second
good
half, Georgia
drives.
scores. They score 14, which seems like a lot, but I mean Tennessee's defense was on the field the entire second half, the whole
Hmm.
second half. So I mean, I don't know how much you can realistically expect from them. But they're like I said, defensive line was not getting pressure, and that was the biggest key to the game to me.
Yep, I agree.
So then, in some Big 12 action, ASU versus KSU, Arizona State jumps out to a 24-0 lead, I believe. And then kind of everything slows to a halt in KSU. I stopped watching at 21-0, and then I keep checking my phone just to make sure. Then all of a sudden it's 7-24. All right. Then it's 14-24, and 5 minutes left. Kansas State's got the ball, and it's like, okay, they got a real shot here. They end up going down, 2:05 left in the fourth quarter. They miss a field goal, and that's kind of where the game ended. They didn't end up getting the ball back. It didn't score. They lose that game 24-14. Major ramifications in the Big 12 race when you talk about considering the BYU Kansas outcome as well. So ASU now has a shot to win the Big 12.
Yeah, they absolutely do, and they've earned it, man. What did you say they went last year? Something like
I
one,
believe it
two
was 1 and
wins.
11. It was 1 and 11 or 2 and 10, something really poor.
yeah, the turnaround is just absolutely nuts. And they don't, well, they do actually. They technically control their destiny here as far as trying to make the playoffs, which is crazy to say, but BYU still remains on their schedule. If they can beat BYU this week, win their last game, they're probably playing Colorado maybe in the Big 12 championship, and you win that one, you're in. So Arizona State going from one of the worst teams in college football all the way to looking at a playoff bid, that's kind of nuts to say, but it's true, and they've earned it by going 5-2 in the Big 12, while the Big 12 is probably the worst, maybe second worst conference as far as Power Four conferences go. That's still impressive, man. So props to ASU. We'll see. We'll see if they can do even more and make the playoffs.
Yeah, quick note on ASU. They made a quarterback change middle of the season, Sam Levitt, and he's now 7-1 as their starter. So, good looks there from ASU. Big one against BYU, and we'll get into that one later. And then the other big game to me was Oregon-Wisconsin this week. Number one on upset alert in Camp Randall. People were kind of looking at this, and we said that Oregon would cover. They definitely did not. And there wasn't really any pundits that I was seeing that were saying, man, Oregon's actually in danger here, especially considering Wisconsin just got handled by Iowa. And Wisconsin gave it everything they had. Oregon plays just not really a quality game. Couple ballsy calls from Dan Lanning, and Oregon ends up getting it done 16-13. One of the trends we see continue is Dylan Gabriel with his fourth red zone turnover. That's the most in college football, and that's just something to, put up on the shelf. And when it comes time to play another big game, is that a thing that shows up again? But what are you seeing from that game?
I think my biggest takeaway is just don't overreact to Oregon barely winning this game. They've been the best team in college football for the past eight weeks, something like that. Just smoking every single team that they play with a huge win over Ohio State. They finally hit a game that kind of a trap game there, heading to a solid Wisconsin team in Wisconsin. You got, everyone's going to have a game that just isn't that great. So my takeaway is just don't overreact to Oregon throwing up just not that great of a game. I don't think that means that they're no longer that big of a threat to win the championship, to make the playoffs, to win the Big Ten. They struggled, but they still got the win, and that still speaks to how good of a team that they are. Those calls are still crazy to me. Like that 4th and 9. So it was 4th and 9, the very start of the fourth quarter. They're down 7 on the Wisconsin 40, I think. They go for it, which like they pick it up. So I guess you say great call there, but I don't even think the analytics agree with that. And analytics usually favor going for it. But 4th and 9 on just past, midfield. If you don't pick that up, Wisconsin just needs like 20, 30 yards and they could kick a field goal and go up 2 scores. So didn't like the decision, but man, did it work for them. They pick it up, they go score a touchdown, and that completely changed the game. So props to Oregon for, I guess, having more balls than I would in that situation.
Yeah, man. A lot of people talking about Dan Lanning playing jump around the, classic Camp Randall going into the fourth quarter, playing that all week at practice, when the guys are tired, and then that's how they got to conjure their energy. They got to find it when they're listening to that. And, it's just another one of those things that we're seeing from Dan Lanning this year. I think he's really just doing a phenomenal job. Play calls, you can argue with some of the decisions, but the penalty against Ohio State, you look at that, everyone's been fired up with the Oregon media team and just all the stuff they're putting out there and showing like the Gladiator movie stuff he was doing. So a lot of good things out of Eugene there. Yeah, that 4th and 9, Dylan Gabriel rolls out left. I don't know, some of y'all I'm sure have seen it, but he rolls out left and throws at his tight end's knees basically and fits it into one of the tightest windows I've ever seen on 4th and 9. So hell of a throw, hell of a pickup. Immediately turns into a touchdown. And as soon as that game was tied, I felt like that game was over. Oregon's defense had been so dominant. Wisconsin's quarterback was relatively non-existent. I don't even know if he eclipsed 100 yards. If he did, it was like 115 or something. Not great quarterback play there. If they do have good quarterback play, that game could have definitely gone different. Then late in that game, Oregon gets the lead, gets the ball back, and 13-16, a minute 45, 4th down and 4. Your defense has been playing phenomenal, and you kick a fake field goal. You fake a field goal and let your punter try and pick up 4 yards on the ground. Man, I hated it. I hated it for so many reasons. If you really want to pick that up, if you want to end the game right there, that's fine. Give it to Dylan Gabriel. Give it to your quarterback. Why are your odds are way better. In my opinion, I think your odds are much better doing that. Even if you think Wisconsin's going to send the house on that field goal, like your punter, you're going to put the ball in the hands of your punter to win the game on the ground.
It was the holder, right?
Yeah, and he's the punter, I think. Ross James is the punter, I believe. And he's their holder.
Snapped it, took off.
Yeah, snapped it, stands up, takes off.
It was like
up like the C gap.
With 4 yards to go, how are you dependent on like one of your least athletic players on the team to pick that up for you? That's
through traffic. Like, it's not like he ran outside. He ran it like to the C gap or D gap, one of those. Like, really, like a relatively interior run. He's about a yard short. I have an issue with it from just put Dylan Gabriel out on the field. I have an issue with it because your defense has been playing phenomenal. I think you take the points and say there's no way Wisconsin goes and scores this touchdown. Because if you miss it, they can go kick a field goal. You know, one deep ball that doesn't go your way, you know, tip ball, something crazy, and they're down at the 35. Now they have a chance to tie it and go to overtime. I hated it. I get you want to end the game. There's no part of that I agree with.
It's already disrespectful to say, defense, we just want to end this game. And then it's even more disrespectful to say, we're actually going to put it in the hands of the holder of the field goal unit.
Of the punter, man.
See if he could pick it up. I remember texting you through the game, like, is it going to happen again? Oregon does this almost every single year. They lose just kind of a random game that knocks them out of the playoffs. And I think that's kind of a good sign that maybe this is a different Oregon team. They had their adversity and they handled it. So props to Oregon.
Yeah, end of the day, I do agree with you. Don't overreact to this game. Late November game. They're probably looking forward to the bye. They've got a couple injuries that they want to get. They want to get some guys healthy, and then they got Washington. And no matter how that game goes, they'll be in the Big Ten championship. So, you know, that's props to Oregon. They got it done. They should be a lock at this point. I think even if they drop the last two, they're probably still in at 11-2. I don't think they get punished for being a loser of a Big Ten championship game, potentially to Ohio State or Indiana. And then other games we saw. Are you worried about Texas at all? They go up 13-0. Arkansas brings it back 10-13. Very similar script to the Tennessee-Arkansas game. And then Texas scores a touchdown, force a fumble, run out the last 6:55 of the fourth quarter on the ground. I mean, dominated at the beginning, dominated at the end. Middle portion, Arkansas was winning. Do you feel any type of way about that?
Not too much. Arkansas has kind of shown that throughout the season. They're a pretty feisty team. Beating Tennessee. That's a fantastic win right there for Arkansas. So I'm not too surprised that Texas struggled with them a little bit. I don't have too many takeaways, kind of similar to Oregon, where it's just like, I wouldn't overreact to it too much. They went on the road. They beat a solid team within their conference. And it didn't look too difficult for them, it wasn't that close of a game, in my opinion. So, no, I don't have too many takeaways other than Texas is still probably my number 2. I want to say I had them at number 2 last week in the SEC behind Bama. And I think I still probably have that. Georgia's definitely right there. Might have Georgia over them, but no, I still feel good about Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to read too much into it. I already had concerns about Texas. I had them at number 3 in my SEC last week, which Tennessee proved me wrong. But I got, a little bit of concern just because of the lack of strength of schedule that they've had. I get that they're an SEC team, and every week is a tough week in the SEC because that's all ESPN is ever going to tell you. But once again, when they play like Vanderbilt, close game, Arkansas, relatively close game. So just keeping an eye out for Texas. They play Georgia. They get smoked by Georgia. So nothing really changed from last week. It kind of confirmed that I have slight suspicions about Texas. but they're still obviously a very good team. Other things from this week, we got Colorado smoking Utah. Thought it was going to be
Yeah,
close.
not
It
even
was not.
close. Utah has still one of the best defenses in the country, and Colorado goes and hangs, what, 49 on
49,
them?
49-24.
49 on Utah. And I mean, Utah has not been that good of a team this season, but their defense has still been fantastic. I mean, they don't let up more than 20 points all that often. So for Colorado to go in there and just dial it up, absolutely smoke them, that's impressive. That's an impressive win for Colorado. And at this point, I think Colorado might be the favorite to win the Big 12 with a performance like that, with BYU falling. ASU is definitely on the rise, but if I had to pick between the two, I'm definitely leaning Colorado. So that was a massive win, and we're legitimately talking about Dion taking a team that was an afterthought 2 seasons ago to being probably the likely favorite at this point to make it for the Big 12.
Yeah, 111 2 seasons ago, worst point differential of any team, I believe, this century. Like it was something, a Power 5 team this century. It was something insane. And they just went and took care of business. Travis Hunter, front runner for the Heisman. He started the game at minus 150, I want to say, for his odds. His odds are now at minus 400. So, everyone's feeling him for the Heisman. I'm with it, man. I mean, Ashton Genty, phenomenal season. Dylan Gabriel, those quarterbacks are the really good teams, Jalen Milroe, those type of guys. But he's playing both sides of the ball, and he's doing it at a phenomenal level. And did you see the Shador throw where he just basically threw him a jump ball in between like 3 Utah guys? He just
Yeah,
goes up and gets it.
Moss, 2 guys. Yeah.
Yep.
He's got the best ball skills I think I've ever seen. It's crazy. Like anywhere in the air, he's got it. He's snagging it, both offense and defense. It's extremely impressive. He's going to be, I think, a lock as a top 3 pick this draft. Probably the first non-quarterback off the board. And he 100% deserves the Heisman. It's just something that we're probably not going to see in this generation, in the next decade, I would say, is a player that plays elite on both sides of a D1 Power 4 conference football team. So he deserves it.
Yeah, and it's maybe one of those things where you don't see for another 30, 40 years, if ever again, because Dion was big on that. And, you could go back and say maybe Dion set a trend. Maybe there's just guys that are just freaky athletic that can do this. And then we don't see it again until Travis Hunter at that rate. I mean, Desmond Howard did a little bit of it, but not to this scale. So seeing that, it's impressive. My stipulation is Colorado needs to make the Big 12 title game for him to win the Heisman. I think if they drop one of either of these next 2 games and don't make the Big 12 title game, I just don't think there's enough team success. But he's gonna have the
Travis
hype
Hunter to
train
win the
behind him.
Heisman.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think it matters if. I mean, unless he like gets hurt or something for the last 2 games, then maybe. But I don't know who else would I guess Genty would be the only one, and props to Genty's still one of the best football players in college football, but I don't think it compares to playing elite on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, it's just there's sometimes that team aspect, but he's got the whole media base behind him. He's got the whole Dion hype train. So, I mean, there's a reason he's minus 400.
I mean, you got Cam Ward maybe, and Jalen. Like, are those the other 2 you're thinking? Like a quarterback
Cam
comes in and
Ward,
takes
Dylan
it.
Gabriel, Jalen Milroe, just that slew of like good quarterbacks on really good teams.
Yeah,
That's the other.
maybe it's just you're not seeing like, in my opinion, Heisman level play from any of those guys. Maybe stats wise, but I think it'll take a lot for Travis Hunter to lose that. I mean, Vegas agrees. Like, what do you say it was minus 500?
Yeah, it's minus 400 last I checked. At least that's how it closed on Saturday.
Yeah, for a line to move that much, I feel like we could pretty confidently say Travis Hunter will win the Heisman.
Yeah, I agree, man. He should. I mean, he's just doing ridiculous stuff. Other things, Tulane and Army both clinched their spot in the AAC title game pretty convincingly, so they will play. The host is to be determined based on seeding, so we'll see how that all plays out. SMU survived against Boston College. I mean, that game was close. It's a 10-point game at the end, but the game was much closer than the score indicated. Boston College was up 21-20 at one point. They have the ball down 31-28, and they can't do anything with the ball. So had a chance to go tie or win. Didn't get it done. Boston College, pretty middle of the pack team. So, maybe red alert on SMU here. I don't know how many people were really buying into that's a top 10 team in the country.
It's the ACC. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Whoever comes out of it.
Yeah. While we're talking about the ACC, Clemson, they played Pitt this week. They went up 17-7. Pitt goes and makes a comeback. They go up 20-17. Cade Klubnik, 50-yard touchdown run to take the lead. Yeah, that was nuts.
Pitt had allowed something like sub 30 rushing yards the whole game, and then they let up a 50-plus yard scramble on one play. That's just a brutal way to lose. But Clemson, back in the conversation here. They're a 2-loss team that still has a chance to play for the ACC. We'll see. I think they still kind of have a tough hill to climb, given that SMU and Miami are ahead of them. And I don't think they have that good of a resume. But we do have to talk about Clemson going forward here.
Yeah, both SMU and Miami, I think they each play one team that's 500, and then their other team that they play is not very good. SMU's at Virginia, and then I think it's Cal, so a couple of 500 teams there. If they should take care of business. I think Clemson has a better chance to beat Miami than SMU does, but I'd way rather see SMU. I think that's way more fun of a story. So go Mustangs for the time being. Pitt also, just a quick note, Pitt did have the ball in Clemson territory, I think around the 20 for the last couple of plays, couldn't punch it in to win that game. Other notes, Boise, close game, 42-21, right? So say close game with a grain of salt. San Jose State should have been up 21-0 in that game. They were like a yard short on a 4th and goal. And then Boise State gets it. They bring it back. It sits at 21-21 for a little bit. They go up 28-21. And San Jose gets the ball 3 times with a chance to tie in the 4th. Can't do anything with it. Boise scores another touchdown late and then gets a pick 6 to kind of make it look a lot better than it was. Rising concerns for Boise State. They keep playing close games. I mean, I know they're kind of the shoe-in team, but this looks far different from a team that played Oregon to a 3-point game.
Yeah, I mean, the Mountain West isn't that tough of a conference, and they're playing tight games with teams within their conference. So, to be honest, it's not like it's a big surprise. This is a Group of 5 school, so they're going to probably play a lot of close games with the teams within their conference. But as far as their case versus like an Army team, like let's say Army beats Notre Dame, right? Now their spot at that number 12 seed is definitely at risk. So I would definitely be a little bit concerned for Boise. I wouldn't be surprised just because it is a Group of 5 team, but definitely be a little bit concerned if you're a Boise State fan, seeing them just barely eke out these wins with your spot at the kind of shoe-in for the Group of 5 team at the 12 seed in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's really whether or not Army beats Notre Dame, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The Boise State resume took a little bit of a hit. Wazoo lost to New Mexico, probably not on a lot of people's radars, but Wazoo was a one-loss team. They were ranked number 18 in the country. I'd be pretty shocked if they stay ranked after losing to New Mexico. It's just not that quality of a team. New Mexico scores late. Wazoo was up 28-14.5, ends up losing that game. So brutal for a Cougs program who was doing really good things for the Pac-2. So then we got Kansas upsetting BYU, biggest upset of the weekend. Not a super big surprise though. A lot of people saw that one coming.
About it.
Yep.
Yeah, BYU's kind of been flirting with it here for the past few weeks, and it happened. We definitely talked about that they were on upset alert, and it 100% happened. Kansas just playing really good football lately. I don't necessarily know what the change is for Kansas, but they're kind of on a win streak here, and they could play spoil to a few Big 12 teams, given that they play Colorado this week. So BYU they're kind of like Miami, just of the Big 12, where we kind of know that this team isn't necessarily that good, and it just kind of finally showed up.
Yeah, we've had our doubts about BYU. I mean, we put them up in the rankings based on just the merit of being undefeated, but we've talked pretty at length about how we don't believe that they're necessarily one of those really top 10 teams in the country. They just don't look great back-to-back weeks now where they just don't look great. And Kansas has been looking good. Jalen Daniels hasn't been turning the ball over, and that's really been the change in their season. I think they've lost 6 one-possession games. I think all their, or maybe, no, 5 of their 6 losses are one-possession losses. I mean, that's brutal. Like, they're still a good football team. But to lose that game at home, it's not a good look. Kansas State was able to get
Mm-mm.
that win. A lot of other teams able to get that to, tough that one out and get that one possession win over Kansas, especially being at home, being number 6 in the country. Utah put you on upset alert, so you should be, up and ready to go. And they just weren't. Kansas beat them.
Yeah, their spot in the playoff is at a huge risk right now. If they win
Yeah.
out, they're in. I mean, they've put themselves in. They control their own destiny, so they could definitely still be in the playoffs. But as far as like support goes, I think we got a lot more doubters than we have supporters of BYU at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And blew a lead to clinch their spot in the Big 12 title game with that loss. Mizzou and South Carolina, game of the week in terms of just watchability. That
I
game
love
was
South Carolina,
nuts.
man.
South Carolina is must-watch TV. I mean, they are just a great team to watch. Mizzou, actually, that's one of the best games I think they've played all season. We've been
It
doubting
was.
them. South
Mm-hmm.
Carolina is a good football team, and they played them 30-34, late touchdown, wins it for South Carolina. South Carolina, you look at their schedule, and they have a 3-point loss to LSU, which I think they should have won that game.
They should
They have
have.
a 2-point loss to Bama. They should have won that game. So if you're a South Carolina fan, you're kind of sitting over in the corner going, man, what could this season have been? You pull out those two games, and all of a sudden, one-loss conference team got smoked by Ole Miss, which is looking better and better every week for Ole Miss. But they could have been a one loss in the conference and looking at a playoff spot, and 5 points puts you at 6-3, and they just can't get it done. But they're great to watch.
Yeah, South Carolina's an absolute blast to watch. As far as Mizzou goes, that knocks them out. Like we said, kind of still had to talk about them, given that they were a 2-loss SEC team, but they're done now as far as the playoffs go. Still a great season. Luther Burden, the wide receiver for Missouri, kind of had a down year, given how high the expectations were. He was kind of billed as like a top 15 pick type of wide receiver. Definitely been a down year, but he showed up in the South Carolina game, caught a go-ahead score there. Unfortunately, the defense couldn't quite hang on. South Carolina got the job done, but still, it was good to see him have a good game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to bring us to our rankings after this week. So we have in order 1 Oregon, 2 Ohio State, 3 Texas, 4 Indiana, 5 Alabama, 6 Ole Miss, 7 Georgia, 8 Penn State, 9 Notre Dame, 10 Miami, 11 BYU, and then Boise State at that 12 spot. I personally wouldn't be surprised if you see Tennessee at that 13 spot ahead of Boise State. Tennessee's lost to Georgia, and then Boise State not looking great against San Jose State. And the committee has shown a willingness to put 2-loss SEC teams ahead of Boise State. But when it comes to the playoff seeding, it's not going to matter. Boise State would get that 12 spot. What are your biggest takeaways from changes in the bracket or in our top 12 this week?
I think our biggest follower was definitely Tennessee. We kind of hyped them up, I'd say, a little bit, given that we said, oh, they're going to cover and going to win, and they lose by 14. So that was a bit of a shocker for us. We had them as, I believe, the number 4 team last week in our rankings, and now they're on the outside looking in, and it's deserved. Georgia handled them. So that's our biggest faller. BYU would be our second biggest faller. Not, like we said, just we kind of expected this to happen. Weren't quite sure when it was going to happen, but it finally did. Still in the running here to win the Big 12, but those two are definitely our biggest fallers. Other than that, everyone just kind of shifted up. Well, let's see, Georgia probably moved up the most for us, right?
Yeah, we had Georgia right on that last spot outside looking in. They were our 12th ranked team last week. but that would have kept them out of the playoffs, and now they're all the way up to our number 7 team. With that, it kind of does Bama and Ole Miss a favor, where Ole Miss was like 16 a couple weeks ago, somewhere around there, and then all of a sudden they beat Georgia, which makes them look good, and then Georgia goes and looks good for them the next week, and all of a sudden they just kind of get pushed up by that head-to-head, and they're all the way up there at number 6.
Yeah, that's a huge turnaround for Ole Miss. Ole Miss kind of seemed like they were done after their second loss to LSU, and yeah, I think they're going to be ranked in the top 6 this week, and should be.
Yep. And then other teams on the outside looking in, SMU, number 14 for us, and they're going to have a chance. They control their own destiny. If they win, they're going to be in. They're going to have to win their last 2. They're going to have to win the ACC title game. That's it. If they don't win those 3 games, they're not going to be in. Same for Texas A&M, in my opinion. They got to beat Texas. If they don't, they're not in. It would be interesting if they beat Texas, make the SEC title game, and then maybe lose to Bama or whoever else they play. Then it's like, ooh, is Texas out and Texas A&M's in?
It gets really ugly if that happens.
Yeah, it could get really dangerous. We saw the first part of that scenario we were talking about last week, where Georgia's muddled it up with a bunch more 2-loss teams. Texas A&M has the same chance, has the same opportunity here in a couple weeks, but not quite yet.
Yeah, I think the most common trend you'll see in our rankings is that it's all SEC and Big Ten, and it's going to be the winner of the ACC and the winner of the Big 12, and then one of the group of 5 teams. But it's going to be dominated by Big Ten and SEC because those are the best teams in football. The Big 12 and ACC just haven't been that impressive this year. Still deserve a spot, but that's going to be a pretty common theme that you'll see from us for pretty much the entirety of the rankings going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, it plays out on the field. You watch it; those teams look like the best teams. They play each other. Games are close, and they just look like the better teams. I don't think it's a brand bias thing at all. ACC doesn't look like a good conference. Big 12 doesn't really look like a good conference. Games for this week, biggest game of the week, we got number 4 Indiana going to number 2 Ohio State. Ohio State's a 13-point favorite, and it makes sense. Indiana's probably best opponent was Michigan. That was a really close game. How are you seeing this one going?
I think you just got to go with what we know, and that's Ohio State. I love what Indiana has done. I mean, they're undefeated, so I don't want to doubt them, but you're going into Ohio State. Ohio State has proven that they deserve to be the number 2 team in the country. It's just a different beast. I wouldn't say that I'd be surprised if Indiana is able to, 1, keep this game close and cover that spread, and 2, maybe even win. I'd be a little surprised if they win, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for them by any means. They just play sound, really good football on both sides of the ball. And Ohio State, while their flashes and their ceiling is a lot higher, they have shown a floor that's fairly low. So if Indiana can catch Ohio State on an off day, I do think there's a chance that they win. But I'm going to lean with what we've kind of known to be true season after season, is that Ohio State will win this game and make their bid to go play Oregon again in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a spot where Indiana loses and it doesn't hurt them too bad. It does take away their spot to play in the Big Ten title game, but I think they're still in the playoff with 1 loss. And so they lose, they're still going to have a chance to compete for a natty. That's kind of how I see it. I think not a whole bunch of offense in this game. I got Ohio State 28-17. That would give Indiana the cover, but barely. That's kind of one where I'm scared to touch that line from money-wise. Do you have any bets you like in that game?
I actually kind of lean the over, I think, on this one, 51.5. I think both of these offenses are top-notch offenses, and I think that's a good line. I would be surprised either way, but I kind of lean the over on that guy. And I do actually lean the Indiana cover here. But I think it's more of like, I just think it's more of like a 10-point loss, something like that.
Yeah, I think 2 score, but maybe 13 is a little bit too much. Ole Miss at Florida. Man, Florida's got a chance to do something.
We've been saying it. DJ Legway, he's freaking good, man. Every time he's in,
so good.
Florida is dangerous. He didn't play, or gets hurt in the Georgia game. That's the reason they lose that one. Doesn't play against Texas, they get blown out. Go play LSU. LSU's no slouch, man. They're playing good football. And they low-key handle them. 27-16. They were at home, but still, LSU's no slouch. And that guy at quarterback is just a difference maker. Ole Miss has shown that they can definitely lose, given that they lost to Kentucky. And they got 2 losses on their record. So I'm definitely putting Ole Miss on upset watch here. They're still the better team. Still the better team, but Florida, they're dangerous, man.
Massive upset watch here. I love Florida plus 10.5. I think this game is close. It is Ole Miss lost to LSU. Obviously, that's boiling it down a little bit, but that game was close. They look pretty comparable. And, man, Florida just looks good when Lagway plays. I swear they would have beat Georgia if Lagway played.
100%.
And 10.5 is a lot. Ole Miss looked good, but Florida's looked dangerous, and we've seen up and downs from Ole Miss. 10.5 is way too many for me. It's in Florida. If it was a night game, I'd pick Florida outright. It's an early game. It's going to be a 12 p.m. kickoff time, so the Swamp will be going. Obviously, they'll be fired up. Not quite the same environment as a night game. I really want to pick Florida.
I do too.
I'm gonna go against my intuition here. Go Ole Miss 31-27. But man,
that's a high scoring game.
That's a really, really interesting game. Florida at plus 300 is a pretty solid bet, if you ask me, in terms of value.
Yeah. I think I still lean Ole Miss, just given how good they looked against Georgia. And Florida, still has 5 losses. Like it's not like they're that good, but no, I'm going Florida, man. I think DJ Lagway is the better quarterback in this game. They're at home. This is a massive trap game for Ole Miss, who feels comfortable, given that they've beat the toughest team on their schedule, with it being Georgia. And I think they're comfy. They go in, and I think Florida beats them. Hot take, but give me Florida.
I don't hate it at all. Next, we got BYU. They're going to go to ASU. So 2 things had to happen for this game to be super important last week. We talked about them. BYU needed to lose to Kansas, and ASU needed to beat Kansas State. Both of them happened. So ASU now
Massive
1 game
game.
back of BYU in the conference standings. Chance to pass BYU in the conference standings because of that head-to-head. ASU's actually 3.5-point favorites. Vegas has been fading BYU all year, and you saw why last week. ASU looks really good against Kansas State. How are you feeling about this game?
I just think you look at the trend of both of these teams. One team is trending downwards, and one team is trending upwards. And that trending upward team is at home. So give me Arizona State to win this game. I think they cover the 3.5. I think it's close. I think it's just more of like a 4 to 10 point win, something like that. But I like Arizona State a lot in this one. They're playing the better football right now, while BYU is trending downwards.
Yeah, as a lifelong Oregon fan, the desert is where dreams go to die. It just is. BYU, good luck. They're going to go in. And I got ASU 28-20 in this game. I think they cover that 3.5. I feel pretty good about that 3.5 bet. And ASU probably getting ranked somewhere around 20 this week. I think they win this game, and then all of a sudden they're sitting there at, 14-15, and then rivalry week, so you never know what's going to happen. But they put themselves in a real good spot to possibly make the playoffs if they take care of business this week. It'll be a good game. I think it's a game that everyone should watch. Should be on everyone's radar, and maybe it won't get the same love it deserves because it's in the Big 12. But I think it has a chance to be a really phenomenal game and a super impactful game as well.
Yeah, Big 12 got so much more interesting with what happened last week, and we'll see. But give me ASU.
Yeah, I'm with it. Next Big 12 game, Colorado at Kansas. Man, can Kansas do it again? Can they?
Play spoils twice. Kill the dreams of 2 Big 12 teams. They can, but I'm going to stick with Colorado here. I think they're the way more talented team. Just given how many points they put up on the best defense in the Big 12, I'm not too concerned that they won't do the same against Kansas. While Kansas might keep it close, give me Colorado. That's one of my favorite lines of the week is Colorado -3 for that one. They're at home, or sorry, they are on the road, but I just think they're a lot more talented than Kansas. And yeah, Kansas is playing good football. Still a 7-loss football team. So given the talent disparity, given how hot Colorado is, give me Colorado in this one.
Yeah, 2:30 kickoff time, so we're not going crazy night game in Kansas. I'm big on night games. I actually think having games at night is really impactful, just for the crowd and its energy. Or maybe that's a hot take, but that's how I feel about it. Jalen Daniels. Now, if you look at who Colorado's lost to, they lost to Kansas State, and they lost to it's blanking me, Nebraska. Dylan Raiola, not really a scrambler as much as he is a guy who can just kind of move around behind the line of scrimmage and just wait and wait and wait and buy time until he can find someone. Avery Johnson, very mobile quarterback, possibly more dependent on his legs than his arm, which was a big problem against Arizona State.
He definitely.
Jalen Daniels, he's better than both of those quarterbacks, in my opinion. And he's the most athletic of those quarterbacks, in my opinion. So I think in terms of following the blueprint to beat Colorado this year, Kansas fits it. They're hot. That being said,
All that
Colorado, I don't want to buy into the hype because, as the whole ESPN thing last year, they're number 3, they're ranked 19, and go get blown out in Oregon. This year's different. They're good. They're just a good football team. And they just look good enough to get it done. I'm buying in. I got Colorado winning this game. I'm in no way shocked if Kansas pulls this one off. I think they have the blueprint to do it. But I think Colorado gets it done. A lot of points. 35-31 Colorado.
Points. Yeah, there should be a lot of points in this game.
Yeah, over-under set at 59.5.
Oh, jeez.
It's up there. I wouldn't put any money anywhere near it, but if I had to pick,
give me the over.
Give me the over. Big 12 overs. Death taxes and Big 12 overs, they always hit. And then last big game, Army is going to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 14-point favorite. If Army wins this game, they're probably in the college football playoff. I mean, in all likelihood. You wonder if they can afford a loss. Maybe they probably couldn't afford a loss, so they still have to take care of Tulane in that AAC title game. Still have to beat Navy. But they dethroned Boise as the favorite to get that group of 5 spot. Notre Dame, if they lose this game, they're out. You can't lose to NIU and lose another game, especially without a conference title game. So a lot on the line. Probably win or go home for both teams in this game. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, man, I want to go Army. I would love if Army could beat Notre Dame. And I definitely think they can. Army's a damn good football team. I'm still going to lean towards Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I think, is the better football team, especially at home. They just got a lot more talent. We've kind of seen this story play out. A lot of times we get a Cinderella story that we're hoping hits and hoping they make the playoffs, but I'm kind of fading this one. I think Notre Dame is always going to be the team that does just enough that you got to talk about them, but never do enough to make them seem like a threat.
Very Penn State-esque.
Yeah, even worse, though, because they don't even have a conference. So, yeah, as far as we hate on Notre Dame more. That's for sure. I would say that they win this game and they limp into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Especially being at home, they've played better competition. It's gonna be an issue. Army's got those weight standards that they can't exceed, and it's gonna be rough. If they can find a way to run the ball, they've got a chance to do it just because they've got that ground and pound style, with the option that's going to, if they play good defense and hold on to the ball, too bad Jim Harbaugh isn't coaching them, to be honest. But if they can play good defense, hold on to the ball, they'll be able to make it close. I think Notre Dame is going to know that they can sell out against the run. They're going to be able to stop it. I don't see this game being that close. I got Notre Dame covering 38-17.
Yeah, I don't have too much of a disagreement there. I think
Yeah.
Notre Dame kind of runs away with it, unfortunately. But we're rooting for Army, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Dog lines. If you're looking at betting dog lines this week, my favorite is going to be UCLA plus 145. Game was closer against Washington than it looked. Washington pulls away in the fourth quarter last week. UCLA playing good football as of late. They have wins against Nebraska. They beat Minnesota. They beat Rutgers. So you look at who they've lost to, and it's like, oh, they lost to LSU, Oregon, Penn State, and I think Ohio State or some other really, really high quality team. And you're just like, whoa, who was ever really going to do anything with that schedule that wasn't a top tier contender? So I like them against USC. I know USC beat Nebraska, but I think UCLA is trending in the right direction. I think they go win that game at plus 145.
Probably not going to be tuning into that game, but I like the line for sure. I think UCLA that's a brutal schedule. So USC has done nothing inspiring. I think UCLA is able to pull it off. I already kind of talked about my dog of the week. Give me Florida.
Florida, baby.
Come on. No really expert analysis here. Just hoping for a wild pick to hit and make me look like I know football. But hey, we're gonna ride Florida.
DJ Lagway, man.
DJ Lagway.
He's unbelievable. Anything else from college football, either coming up this week or from last week that you want to talk about?
Not that I could think of at the moment. You got anything?
Nah, man. That's I think I covered everything I wanted to talk about. We are doing a mailbag, so you can submit that at mmsportspod@gmail.com. You can also DM me directly on Instagram. That's McKay_03_. And we're hoping to get a show out probably tomorrow or Wednesday, depending on when you're listening to this. Answering some of your guys' questions is something we want to do more. We want to be able to interact with you guys and give you guys what you want to hear. So appreciate you guys listening, and go make some money this weekend.